Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent. Indeed, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is real. I can confirm this because I've been playing it. I have about 10 hours in the game right now and I want to share some thoughts on it because Paradox Interactive in the Chinese room reached out, wanted to sponsor a video on the channel, and you know the Mr. Matty way with these types of videos. Okay, you want to sponsor it? I got to be able to say whatever I feel about your game, good or bad. Cool with that? Cool. You got a slot on the channel. So here we are now talking about Bloodlines 2, which I was interested in as an RPG fan. I wanted to check this one out. It's been passed around between a lot of developers. It's now ended up with the Chinese room, who's not known for role-playing games, but rather great walking simulators. So I was already going in a little bit skeptical. How did they deliver? I want to break that down here and now after, again, 10 hours with the game. So let me know your thoughts on Bloodlines 2 down below if you'll be picking it up. But here we go. All right, first and foremost, it's not really an RPG. It's got an identity crisis. That much is already apparent when you look at the development story, but just playing the game. Like, the prologue's 4 hours long. It's really on rails. There's a lot of different things happening in this game. It is not a role-playing game, though, unless you consider just having a skill system a role-playing experience. It's funny because given this game has been developed by a walking sim team, there are walking sim elements all over this game. If you like atmosphere and a strong setting, I think there are parts of this game that you will really enjoy. But if you're here looking for a deep role-playing system, you're not really going to find that here. What you have is a skill system that at the start of the character creator, you pick male or female, and from there you get into what family you want to be a part of. Now here's where I got excited when, okay, like each family has their own particular skill set. I was very methodical about which one I picked. Like, what play style am I going to get into here? Am I going to be more stealthy? Am I going to be more action oriented? You'd see that, like, one family had the blink skill from Dishonored. I went, ooh, I really like that one. Do I want that? Or do I want to open up more combat oriented, something where I can like puppet my enemies and have them fight each other? So I was very deliberate about my selection and was a bit let down when I got out of the prologue and opened up the skill tree and saw, oh, okay, like I can just get all these eventually if I feast on enough people around Seattle. It kind of bummed me out because I don't like when character creators are just like a good starting place rather than like pigeonhole me a little bit. Like, these abilities should be tied to this family, and that should just be a choice for the player that then I can express myself within the gameplay in a very unique way from, say, you who picks up the game and plays a different way. But as you complete quests and you level up, you get to unlock more of these skills, and that is the role-playing element in this game, if you want to call it that. It is a leveling up system, and if you consider this a role-playing game, then you may as well call like Far Cry or an RPG, right? You wouldn't do that, so that's what you've got here. But not every RPG is about build crafting. A lot of it is about reactivity, choice, and consequence. If there was a comparable that you could make on paper, not in the terms of quality, but on paper, it would be something along the lines of Mass Effect. You have this set character who is a legend in this world, and they have a voice, like they are a character, but you're kind of choosing how they react to certain events. And the game will note that. You'll say certain things and it'll say someone was irritated by that or someone liked that on the top right corner of the screen. The main problem I do really have with this game really isn't the lack of gameplay role-playing elements, because I've played plenty of great role-playing games that just haven't really driven through the story. It's the lack of reactivity. You see, you have in this game a really interesting setting and atmosphere. Snowy time, Christmas time, Seattle is beautiful. It is awesome. Like, it is immediately the strongest component of this game. You just want to spend as much time in this world as possible. This is actually something that it does share with the first Bloodline games. Like, if you love a good setting, if you love a good atmosphere, and I've talked about this in many videos before, like I look at Fallout 3 as one of my preferences above New Vegas, which I know New Vegas is the better role-playing game, but Fallout 3 has the stronger atmosphere, and that does do something for me, and that's definitely the case here with Bloodlines 2. It is a really awesome world to be in and to walk around in. I just wish it was a little bit more interactive. Like, I loved how in Santa Monica in the first Bloodlines, like, you could go into the police station, you could sneak around, you could kind of break the rules of the game here. But this game is very linear, very on rails, very much like a modern RPG, if you want to call it that, where you open up your map, you mark your next objective, you run to your mission, you do your mission, and it all plays out the same. But what does help the setting and the atmosphere is the sort of noir vibe that the main story has. You wake up after a long rest and you are joined by Fabian. Now, Fabian is this voice in your head, and I love the presentation when he's talking and you're looking down. It's this really cool vibe. And this is, again, where you're in that noir pocket. This game is at its strongest. The narrative hook is there because you're trying to find out why two masterful vampires have merged together. And especially as you start to unpack the early parts of even the prologue and realize what's actually happening here, I do think the narrative hook is pretty good, especially when you're jumping between time periods. There's parts in this game where you play as Fabian in like the 1920s, and you still see the same cast of vampires that you do in the game's current day setting, which is 2024. And so when you're jumping between these two, this is where you see the walking sim elements of the Chinese room really playing out before your eyes. Like, you don't fight here or anything, you just walk around, look around, investigate. You can feel this is where the Chinese room is really in their bag, in their comfort zone. But basically, you're going to be using the past to investigate the present, and you're kind of piecing these together. And I do think it's one of the strongest parts of the game. When it's Fire, the main character, and Fabian working together to solve this mystery, I think that's at its most interesting. It's just a shame it's not as reactive as it should have been, and probably, based on the development history, how it wanted to be. Effectively, you turn into the new sheriff in town, and you're handling the problem for all of these different vampire families across Seattle, each of them having their own beef. But this is where the lack of reactivity kicks in for me. Right away, I finished the prologue, I go out into the open world, I screwed someone over at the end of the prologue, I went, all right, cool, let's see how the game reacts to that. One of my first side quest givers was someone who I did screw over, and they were happy to work with me, and we had a great relationship, and we were on the same terms. There was no mentioning of that prior event. I found that very disappointing. This game is littered with that stuff. So again, if you're like a huge Bloodline 1s fan, you like how the game was always speaking to you about the actions you were taking, you're not going to really find that here. Again, if you do take it as more of just this linear story, you'll find a little bit of enjoyment in it, no doubt about that, especially if the atmosphere and the setting really do speak to you. Because then in those pockets, I think the writing quality is good. I do find it, though, a bit hit or miss, because you'll have moments where characters are really well performed and the writing is excellent, and then you'll have times where they say some wild things and I'm like, well, where'd that come from? It's either slapstick or completely out of place. Like, you'll have characters talking about a Tarantino finale, and I'm like, what? I'm playing a video game, what? Or you'll have vampires mentioning hashtags and discussing social media because they're trying to catch your character who's been asleep up to speed, and they're just kind of like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like, wouldn't you be more fascinated about what this internet thing is? But again, it feels very current day at times. Radio hosts will discuss current day issues, and like, a lot of this is either written poorly or feels slapstick, or frankly just feels out of universe. And it's in those moments that I think the writing quality could just be way better. It goes beyond the reactivity there, and it's just like, this is addition by subtraction in my opinion. But again, when we're looking at that main storyline, if you're just looking at that alone, I do think it's pretty good. So now let's get into the combat a little bit. It's much more action-oriented this time around. Not that the first Bloodlines game wasn't action-oriented, but I mean, this one's like, you can pick up and play it and not really struggle to understand it if you've played a modern action game before. It's all handled in first person, and I like the first person animations, especially when you can charge attacks mid-combo and you'll swing in like a roundhouse kick and it looks very natural, or you'll back fist an opponent and you feel like a very strong master vampire, because when you charge up the power attack, I'm used to like other hand-to-hand combat games like, oh, I broke their guard. But I mean, if someone leaves their guard open and you charge the attack and back fist them, they'll go flying, and you can like combo them in midair. There is a power fantasy to it that I think is really enjoyable, and honestly, way better than the first game. I know you're not playing Bloodlines for better combat, but I do feel the action-oriented combat here works well. However, the actual powers themselves, while cool, have so much potential to give you a lot of freedom in the game's stealth sections, but I feel like that's where it comes up short. And it reminds me of a certain game that you probably won't be pleased to hear about, but it does remind me of Thief 2014. Thief 2014, I remember being so excited for this game because I was a huge Dishonored fan, and I was like, oh, this looks like more of that. I'm in. Thief 2014 gives you all the right tools. Like, you can knock out the fire with your bow and arrow that has like a water arrow on it. Like, oh, great. Like, I love that sort of stuff. But the game's design encourages you to use it at specific moments. Like, you can't get around there unless you do it right here, right at this moment. And in Thief 2014, it's just not as freeform as it could be. And Bloodlines 2 has that same issue. You have the ability to like puppeteer your enemies, and you could watch them tear each other apart across the entire level for a little bit. Like, there is a little bit of menacing from the distance that can happen here. But I feel the levels are too narrow, or the game's trying to get you caught to force you into the actual action sequences that they have planned for you. And I don't think that always feels great. Like, I want to stealth and choose to stealth and be this hidden vampire, because that's how I want to play. But I feel like the game wants you to play a specific way, just like Thief 2014 did. It had a lot of cool ways you could have played if they opened things up more, but that game told you how to play. And as you can tell, that's one of the main problems with Bloodline 2. It has these flashes of potential, no doubt about it, but within those flashes of potential, it also kind of like comes with a caveat, comes with a little drawback, like, oh, combat's actually not too bad, but it's forcing you into it because you don't really have the option often enough to fully express yourself in stealth gameplay. So yeah, you get what I'm saying here, right? I'm like underlining very clearly that this game has a pretty big identity crisis to it. And I get it, like Bloodline 2 fans, you're going to hear me talk about technical jank in a moment. You're going to be like, wait, I know another game that has technical jank and a minor identity crisis and like a lot of crazy things going on here. And I happen to love that game, and I happen to be here for that reason. But I mean, this game has major performance drops on PC, like huge frame dips, and it sucks because like when you're running across the rooftops, full speed gliding from building to building, I do again think the game feels pretty good to get around in, but then all of a sudden it hitches, and that doesn't feel great. So ultimately, I'll say this. If it's the setting you like and you wanted better combat than Vampire 1, you may like this one. I think, again, the main story of who is Fire and who is Fabian and how exactly did these two come together, and now you're like the sheriff of these vampire families and trying to manage their problems and the drama and the twists and turns that come with that. If you're into that sort of thing, I do feel like there would be an enjoyment factor for you here. However, the game is, unfortunately, in my opinion thus far, way too broken and way too inconsistent in both writing and quality to just recommend at a full price tag, especially if you're looking for deeper role-playing elements on any level here or just that really high quality writing. I feel like it's missing a lot of those things that made the first Bloodline game a cult classic. So ultimately, had an all right time with it, but can't like 1000% sit down and be like, yeah, you have to go and check this one out. But is it like downright egregiously terrible like I think many people expected it to be? I wouldn't put it there, at least after 10 hours. So that's all I've got for you on Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. You let me know your thoughts down below. Big thank you again to Paradox Interactive and Chinese Room for sponsoring this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.